So, seeing as England has decided to go ahead and make it a trilogy, it's probably a good time to look back at the original and the sequel, and why Charles III may suddenly feel a deep hatred of Oliver Cromwell. So, Charles I, born in 1600, crowned as King of England, Scotland, and Ireland in 1625 after the death of his father, James VI. He did not get along well with the English Parliament. He didn't really get along well with the Scottish one either, but yeah, whatever, I digress. And a big reason for this was that Charles believed in the divine right of kings. Basically, he saw it as God made him king, even went so far as to predestine him king before his birth, so anything he did was right in the eyes of God. His downfall was primarily because of this mentality. He would pass taxes without Parliament's approval, which was something he wasn't allowed to do, and they would call him out on it, and he said he wouldn't do it again, but then he would proceed to do it again. Plus religious differences within the realm. They were Anglican at this point, though Charles married a Catholic and tended to side more with the Catholics, which was not very popular, especially with a group that were gaining power in England known as the Puritans. It didn't help that there was this war going on in continental Europe between Catholics and Protestants. We call it the 30 Years' War, and Charles didn't really do much to help out the Protestants, which also made his people unhappy. Add to this, Charles trying to force changes on the church in Scotland, which led to riots that he saw as rebellion, so he raised his own army without Parliament's permission and marched to Scotland, where the Scots signed an agreement with him. But this itself would then lead to an invasion by the Scots, where they took English territory in the north before signing another agreement. And because of all this hubbubaloo and the issues with Parliament, yeah, we had ourselves a civil war, the first English Civil War, which started in 1642 and lasted until 1646. Eventually, we'll do a video on the English Civil Wars and the Commonwealth era, but long story short, the royal forces under Charles lost to the parliamentary forces under Oliver Cromwell. Charles handed himself over to the Scottish, who then negotiated with and handed him over to the English Parliament, who first tried to negotiate with the king, and when that didn't work, Cromwell put him on trial for treason, which the king felt was beneath him since no one had the power to judge a king. But of course, he was wrong in that thinking, and in 1649, Charles I was beheaded. Afterwards, Scotland decided to make Charles II King of Scotland, whereas England went a completely different route and abolished the monarchy, proclaiming itself a commonwealth under the leadership of Parliament, and by Parliament I mean Oliver Cromwell. So in short here, Charles I believed that he was better than everyone else, and that mindset got him executed and the monarchy abolished. So yeah, good job there, Chuck 1. Chuck 2, Scottish Boogaloo, continued his father's fight against Cromwell and his new model army, culminating in his loss at the Battle of Worcester in 1651, after which Charles fled to mainland Europe for the next 9 years, and Cromwell took over Scotland. And Cromwell stayed in charge until his death in 1658, but without his leadership, the Commonwealth fell apart, and Charles was invited back, returning to London on his 30th birthday in 1660, after which he was pretty much immediately proclaimed king. Now, those limey tea-sucking bastards want to rewrite history and claim that Charles had been king the entire time, that there never was a Commonwealth era. But yeah, we know the truth. Charles also didn't get along that well with Parliament, though it was mostly because he believed in religious tolerance and Parliament didn't. In fact, he dissolved the Parliament in 1681 and ruled the last 4 years of his reign without them. His 25-year reign is mostly known for the Second Anglo-Dutch War, the fact that he had no legitimate heirs but at least 12 illegitimate ones, the creation of both the Whig and Tory parties, at least one assassination plot against him, and he helped start the Royal African Company, which was responsible for transporting more slaves from Africa to the Americas than any company in history. He was decently popular among the people, at least when he was younger, though they weren't fans of their taxes going to pay for his mistresses and illegitimate children. And towards the end of his life, he became much more of an absolute monarch after his brother and the next king, James, was almost excluded from the line of succession due to his being Catholic. But to kind of bring things around full circle, Princess Diana was a descendant of 2 of Charles's illegitimate sons, so when Charles III's son, Prince William, takes the throne, he will be the first descendant of Charles II to be king. Also, he'll be William V. Anywho, Charles II died in 1685, many believe from exposure to mercury through his experiments, seeing as he was a huge fan of science. So, in short, Charles II was popular for most of his reign with the people, not very popular at all with Parliament. By the end of his reign, he more or less ended up becoming his father, but overall he's remembered as the merry king who most people liked. So in theory, Charles III should have a pretty easy time of it as long as nobody decides to clone Oliver Cromwell.